Welcome back to News Hour. Thank you for staying with us. In studio, I'm joined by Hussein Khalid, the CEO of Vocal Africa, Wangeshi Kahuria, the Executive Director at IMLU, that's the Independent Medical Legal Unit, and David Otieno, who's the presiding convener of the Civil Society Reference Group in Kenya. Now, it goes without saying that reports from human rights organizations document multiple instances of excessive force used by police, especially during protests. Most recently, we witnessed protests in Shauri Moyo area where irate residents protested the killing of a 17-year-old boy in Majengo during an alleged drug raid by police officers. The protest led to police being injured and yet another life being lost in the altercation. Not just that, the big question is, where is Brian Odhiambo for the residents of Naivasha? He's been missing since January 18th. Let's listen in to some of the sentiments that were shared in regards to this particular issues.
CS Rebecca Miano, CS Murkomen Kipchumba, why are you silent? So we have leaders in the top echelons who are not doing anything on this matter.
CS alikuja kwangu na maaskari, wakaniambia mimi ndio napanga maandamano na vijana, tukiwa na kijana yangu, tuwache maandamano. Na mimi sitaacha maandamano mpaka nipate justice kwa Brian.
Sitalala mpaka senye mtanipatia bwana wangu na mtanipatia baba ya watoto wangu, lakini watoto wangu akiniuliza babako wapi, na nyinyi pia atakuja kuuliza Brian yako wapi.
Okay, that's an incident touching on Brian Odhiambo, who was allegedly taken by KWS officers, and he's never been seen to date. According to the officers, he escaped from custody, and that's where the buck stops with them. Unfortunate. Let's start with you, Khalid, because you staged a protest outside Parliament just yesterday and presented a petition to the Senate to conduct an inquiry into the alarming cases of enforced disappearances orchestrated by KWS officers. What's the end goal with this inquiry? Any progress?
Yes, so Brian Odhiambo's case for me is a very clear-cut case. The evidence is overwhelming. If we cannot prosecute Brian Odhiambo's case, then we are doomed as a country. It is one incident where there are tons of witnesses. Even the officers themselves confirm. We have Safaricom that has even provided information on the mobile phone. That is Brian Odhiambo's mobile phone, where it was switched off last, deep inside the park. So you have all this, very open and, very clear information. Initially, IMLU went to court, on an order of habeas corpus to require that the courts, order the KWS Rangers to produce Brian Odhiambo. Very, very unfortunate, the ruling of the decision of the court, saying that we follow through with the investigations. We even had the DCI officer himself, Nakuru County DCI officer, saying that he has recommended the arrest of the 6 rangers to be charged with abduction with intention to kill. That was his recommendation. The file was forwarded to the ODPP. Information we have is that the ODPP sent back the file with recommendations on the gaps that need to be filled before they can prosecute. So there is a lot of back and forth, and we don't understand why there is, so much delay in actually arraigning these 6 individuals in a court of law. The story they are giving is really far-fetched. This individual apparently was seriously beaten. He could hardly move. But they're still sticking to the story that he ran away. And when they were questioned in court, how far did he run away, as in the nearest fence, the border of the national park? And they said at the spot at which he ran away, the nearest fence is like 5 kilometers away. And the lawyer asked him, so this guy was on foot, most probably injured, and you had a vehicle, you had the key and everything. And this guy, you want to tell the court, he outran you. He actually ran so fast that you could not catch up with him with a vehicle.
It doesn't add up.
It just doesn't add up. And it's unfortunate how the court ruled this matter, but IMLU has appealed that case, and we have filed another matter to have an inquiry so that we can have an open session where people can even visit the park, where the courts can go out there and question anyone and everyone who has information so that the truth can come out. We don't know if Brian is alive. Most likely he is not. Most likely he is not, and this is very unfortunate we're saying this. We can't be very sure, but at the end of it all, justice must be done.
Okay, Imlu, the court ruled on the application to produce Odhiambo, saying there was insufficient evidence for Imlu to prove that Odhiambo was in the custody of KWS or DCI. Now, update us on the developments. I hear you've appealed that particular ruling, because how can a suspect just disappear into thin air?
You know, we were actually very disappointed with the ruling. As well, it says we had over 40 witnesses. You know, those are many people who are giving information and confirming what had happened. So what we are seeing is a lack of, I don't even know what to call it, but I don't understand how you can make such a decision. So we've gone back and we are appealing. And for us, you've seen the pain the family has. We will not stop until we confirm, because speculation and living in anxiety without knowing, it's better to know that he's not there, and then we begin the healing journey with the family than not know. So we have appealed, we've gone back to appeal, and we are now enjoined by LSK and of course Vocal Africa, and we are not giving up. But as I said earlier, what is really saddening for us is the fact that there's a blame game within the actors, the criminal justice actors. So you take a case to court, IPOA will take a case to court, we'll investigate, they will take the file to ODPP, ODPP will send it back where it doesn't have enough information, we can't prosecute on this basis. So there's quite a bit that the chain needs to work a lot better. And as I said earlier, we provide very good evidence because we do forensic documentation of all the cases that we have. And we work very closely, for example, with IPOA. If they want the evidence, we are able to share the evidence. But then it doesn't move. So what is the chain? What is this blockage within the chains of justice? Now, our legal framework is we have a robust legal framework. Whether it's on torture, we have the Prevention Against Torture Act. The only thing we haven't done is we haven't ratified and domesticated the enforced disappearances, the Convention on the Enforced Disappearances. Neither have we criminalized enforced disappearances, and that needs to be done. But it doesn't mean that at the moment, because it doesn't exist, we don't account for human life, because that's a fundamental right. So from where we sit, we are demanding accountability. And I think for somebody to make that kind of a ruling, it's very, very unfortunate.
Now, tell me this before we cross over to David. Is the Witness Protection Agency pulling its weight to ensure minimal interference in court proceedings, protecting the witnesses and the victims as well?
I wish they could, and I know they try, but they're very limited. They're limited because it's not functional, it's not resourced. And same to IPOA, it's also not adequately resourced. Neither is the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights. Those oversight mechanisms are not well resourced. Neither are they supported. So we're actually appealing that there needs to be better resourcing for all these mechanisms, and then the independence. There's a lot of interference with the oversight mechanisms and with these agencies that are supposed to provide care and protection for the witness or for the victim. So both the Victim Protection Agency and the Witness Protection Agency, they need to be funded, but they also need to be let to perform, and they need to be a functional unit.
So they're independent only on paper?
Most of these are independent just on paper. And let me also add the Coroner General's office. This office has been in paper setup, but it's never been functional. It doesn't exist. So a lot of these cases, extrajudicial killings, they really cannot be, fully implemented in terms of conclusive determination of the causes of death and all that, we will produce, like IMLU produces autopsy reports that define how this person died. Was it a bullet wound? Was it a blunt, injury? Use of blunt objects. We will give those kinds of evidence, but the government's arm is not in place. It's not functional at all. Okay. So again, I guess it's a way to defeat justice. That's the way I see it. Because when we don't resource the agencies and the mechanisms that are there and the offices, you're actually just saying we don't want justice to prevail. So it's by design, yeah. It's by design.
Okay, David, as you come in, because I hinted earlier about the incident in Shauri Moyo, kindly give us your take, because we saw the push and pull between police and residents after a 17-year-old boy was shot, unfortunately. That led to another loss of life, and the autopsy was conducted, and he died due to a gunshot wound. Where do these families seek reprieve? Yet we're talking about an IPOA that is underfunded, that is trying to pull above its weight in order to ensure justice is served. Talk to us about it.
Yeah, I think it's quite sad because one wonders why the police should use live bullets to quell peaceful processions taking place. People are not armed because Article 37 is very clear. It protects the rights of peaceful assembly. People who are not armed, there are several ways of restraining the public, which is within law. But the use of live bullets is quite unfortunate. And you see, I agree with my comrades here that we need to continue gathering evidence because at one point in time, then somebody or some people must be held to account for the loss of lives and even the abductions. And I would also say that of course, we have got some, we need some also reforms in the national security laws. If you look at, for example, the NIS Act 2012, you find that this act gives sweeping power to the president, to the interior CS. Somebody just wakes up and declares a state of emergency, you see. I think such provisions need to be looked at. You also look at the National Security Council Act, the Preservation of Public Order Services Act. Some of these acts are not in tandem with the new constitution that we're having because the constitution actually turned the police force to a police service. But you find that if you look at some of these laws or acts, it's like they are trying to reduce whatever the gains that Kenyans have made in the constitution through the back door. You look at IPOA. IPOA could be having goodwill, but you see who investigates. IPOA still relies on the same police that we are going to sue in IPOA. So I think we need to look at amendments of some of these critical laws so that we can put proper safeguards and align them to the constitution of Kenya. And maybe I agree, you find that Kenya is arguing that, we have not ratified the Convention on Enforced Disappearance, or we have only signed it. But you see, if you look at the Lawson Treaty, the fact that a country signs it, it shows intention. That this country, so nobody should argue that we cannot act. And if anything, they're saying that they have not signed that, but the Kenyan constitution itself gives the right to security. So nobody should say that there's no law that can hold to account. Finally, you find that, look at the security budget. In fact, we also need to declassify the security budget because even if you look at the budget, the security budget is never interrogated, and it gets a lot of allocations. And then you are telling us IPOA doesn't have money. Then you are telling us that the police doesn't have gear to quell peaceful. They have to use live bullets. Where is this money going to? And I think now we need to start interrogating and say that those laws that are telling us to classify security expenditure should now be made declassified so that Kenyans can interrogate that this money that is going to security, how come there is money and IPOA doesn't have money to conduct investigations.
Accountability at the end of the day. So let's just listen into soundbite. We happened to host an IPOA official in studio in December last year, and he talked about the challenge they face when investigating and prosecuting police officers without substantial evidence. That interview was held on December 17th, but equally the Interior PS Omolo today added that IPOA is working towards concluding investigations of cases filed before them last year. Let's just listen in.
The reason why the Independent Policing Oversight Authority has been calling on the victims to come forward is for purposes of speaking to them and, of course, collecting any evidence that will help us to be able to conclude the investigations. The ODPP requires that before a file is forwarded to it, it must have the necessary evidence. And the reason why the authority is calling for that evidence is to ensure that the files that we prepare has made the threshold and has all the evidence to be able to prosecute a matter before court.
Okay, I guess we don't have the PS bite, but that's what he said, that IPOA is working to conclude the investigation of the cases before them that were filed last year. I'd like to begin with you, Wangeshi, because how do we ensure that the evidence threshold is acceptable as evidence in the court of law?
Several things. I think first, the duty bearers and those who are charged with the responsibility of investigations must investigate according to the protocols that are set. So, for example, we document cases using the Istanbul protocols that define how you document. Now, we have the Mendez principles, and I believe the police officers have been trained on how to investigate and document. And it also defines the threshold. For example, use of coercion and intimidation shouldn't even be done. Yeah. But then, so when it comes to investigations, they really should be able to investigate using the tools that they have. Okay. They should be able to preserve that according to the protocol so that the evidence is not tampered with. And there are protocols of presenting it even in court so that it's admissible. So everything is very well laid out in terms of the chain of custody for evidence management. The question is, how do we handle the evidence? And I don't honestly believe it's a matter of training. I believe at times it's just recklessness and the lack of commitment to do just and to do that which is right. Okay. But in terms of those protocols, they are set. And as I've said again, we, for example, store evidence and we use the right protocols. We use forensics documentation. When the police come to us or IPOA comes to us and they want to use this information or the evidence to present to court, we are happy to collaborate and to cooperate. But then after that, the cases just honestly get lost somewhere. Yeah. But it's not that the evidence is not there. Okay. So I think we just need to step up in terms of the provisions of the chain of custody, the chain of evidence management, and ensure that whether it's ODPP, they should be able honestly to prosecute these cases. Okay. And then the judiciary, which is at the tail end of the justice mechanism, should be able to make the right judgments based on the evidence they have. But like the case of Brian, it's not that the evidence, honestly, it's not there. So that's why I don't want us to focus on the lack of evidence, because that is not the issue. Right. The issue is goodwill to actually push through the cases through the justice mechanism.
Well noted. And as you come in, Hussein, perhaps,
Yeah, I mean, definitely, as Wangeshi is saying, the Kenya Police Service, the Directorate of Criminal Investigations, have every capacity to investigate cases in Kenya. And when they want to, and they will even invite you to the launch of their forensic laboratories and everything. What is lacking in the police service or in the security apparatus in the country is lack of goodwill. They have to listen to the politicians. They have to find out if this is a matter we're supposed to go through, and that then determines how they work. So there is absolutely no excuse for them to investigate any matter. As Wangeshi has said, we have these institutions, but they have been starved of funds deliberately. The only money they're getting, when you talk to them, they will tell you they're getting administration, they're getting salary, so that they can continue paying the rent and continue paying the salary, so that politicians can say, it's not us, go to IPOA. But they don't have money for programs, they don't have money for transport, they don't have money for investigations. All they're supposed to do is sit there, look pretty, and the politicians can say there is IPOA. But they have absolutely zero capacity to investigate. And these are issues that Kenyans must understand, that there is lack of goodwill, and there is too much interference from politicians on the work of these supposed to be independent institutions.
Okay, David, as you come in, because we're pressed of time, the current state of human rights is being compared to the 90s era, and we well know what happened then. Is this a factual comparison based on empirical data?
I think it's even worse because, you know, in the 90s we were operating under a different constitutional framework that was dictatorial. And of course, right now, operating under this framework, and we are still having those cases, it's a case of people still having hangovers of power, and people who are just deliberately acting against the constitution with impunity. And it is, to me, I would dare say that it is worse, because never have we seen young a college student from Sigalagala National Polytechnic just dying because maybe she was seen somewhere protesting. Yeah? You need young people being abducted from their own homes. It has never happened that way. I think it is worse. It's like Gaza. It's like what's happening in Ukraine. And you see, if you look at even the lawlessness happening in Kenya today, you hear even youth or people stealing phones in public rallies in broad daylight. Why are the police? How comes the police are able to know that Khalid is organizing a demonstration, yet they don't know who is abducting? So I think I agree with my comrades here that it is lack of political goodwill. And I think we also need to start looking at, for example, issues like conducting people's tribunals on disappearances and abductions, so that we are able to know that. And of course, as CSRG, we are also looking at now some of these security laws and seeing which are the gaps that we need to, to fill to ensure that we hold those who are responsible to account.
Okay, Wangeshi, 30 seconds, because we're pressed of time. Your final comment here.
Let me close by saying, in 2023, we documented 67 deaths, 2 enforced disappearances, 228 torture. In 2024, we documented 63 deaths, extrajudicial killings, 89 enforced disappearances, 601 torture cases. That's just documentation. These are not numbers. These are people. Your child, a child, somebody's child, somebody's son, somebody's sister, somebody's mother. It has to stop.
Indeed. Allow us to end on that particular note. Our time is up. They say time flies when you're having fun. It's a very important conversation, and that's why we'll have it time and time again. And we definitely thank the civil society actors for pulling their weight and ensuring accountability in this matter that is of utmost concern to Kenyans. Allow me to reintroduce my guests as I appreciate them. David Otieno, presiding convener, Civil Society Reference Group of Kenya.
Thank you so
Asante sana for your time. Wangeshi Kahuria, the Executive Director at IMLU. Thank you so much for your contribution. And Hussein Khalid, the CEO of Vocal Africa. We appreciate your input on the show. That's how we wrap up tonight's edition of News Hour. Remember, this is an ongoing conversation, so feel free to chime in on the social media platforms. And as members of the Fourth Estate, we'll do our part to ensure we are heard and these instances are documented. My name is Jesse Rogers. Enjoy the rest of your viewing. Good night.